On June 14, 1777, the Continental Congress took up a short resolution with a long afterlife. It did not read like a poem. It did not describe a famous painting. It did not name a maker. In plain congressional language, it resolved that the flag of the United States be 13 stripes, alternate red and white, and that the Union be 13 white stars in a blue field, representing a new constellation. Phrase was brief, but the timing mattered. The United States was not yet secure. Independence had been declared less than a year earlier. British armies still held New York. Philadelphia itself could soon be threatened. Congress needed money, soldiers, alliances, legitimacy, and patience from a public living through war. A flag could not solve those problems, but it could make a political claim visible. 13 states were not merely protesting within an empire. They were trying to act as one nation. Before the resolution, revolutionary forces had used a variety of banners. Local militia flags carried regional symbols, mottos, stripes, rattlesnakes, liberty devices, and colonial emblems. The Grand Union flag, with 13 stripes and the British Union in the canton, had appeared in the early war. It expressed a complicated moment when resistance to Parliament had not yet fully become separation from the Crown. After independence, that ambiguity was harder to sustain. A new country needed symbols that no longer looked like loyal opposition. Congress was a fragile institution for such a large claim. It had no modern federal bureaucracy, no permanent capital, and limited power to compel the states. Its authority depended on persuasion, committees, wartime necessity, and the willingness of state governments to cooperate. Yet that made symbols even more important. When Congress declared a national flag, it was asserting that a union existed even while the mechanics of that union were still being argued into being. The wording chose 13 as the center of the design. 13 stripes stood for 13 states. 13 stars stood for the same political community in the Union field. The stars were not described as a circle, rose, or any particular pattern. The resolution did not specify exact proportions, shades, sewing instructions, or a single official manufacturer. That silence is historically important. It helps explain why early American flags varied. The essential idea was fixed, while the visual grammar remained flexible. The phrase "new constellation" gave the resolution its most memorable image. In 18th century political language, a constellation suggested separate lights forming a meaningful pattern. It was a way to imagine unity without erasing distinct states. That mattered because the revolution was not only a war against Britain. It was also a debate among Americans about how much union they could accept, how much local independence they would preserve, and what kind of public identity could hold the project together. The flag's first importance was practical. Armies, ships, forts, and government offices needed marks of recognition. At sea, flags mattered because warships, privateers, and merchant vessels communicated identity through ensigns. In camp, banners could identify units and rally men under stress. In diplomacy, a flag helped foreign observers understand that the Americans claimed not just rebellion, but sovereignty. A national emblem could travel where Congress's written resolutions could not. But the flag was also psychological. Soldiers fighting through hunger, disease, enlistment crises, and defeat needed proof that their cause was more than scattered local resistance. Civilians asked to provide supplies or accept paper currency needed a story of common purpose. The stars and stripes offered a compact version of that story. It said that the states were distinct but linked, endangered but visible, new but determined to be recognized. One of the hardest parts of telling this story is separating evidence from legend. The later tradition that Betsy Ross made the first American flag became deeply rooted in popular memory. The story has emotional power, a Philadelphia upholsterer, a secret committee, and a hand-sewn symbol of a new nation. But the documentary evidence for that exact scene is not strong enough to treat it as proven fact. Careful history can acknowledge the tradition without turning it into certainty. That does not make material makers unimportant. Flags had to be cut, dyed, stitched, hoisted, repaired, and replaced. Women, artisans, sailmakers, upholsterers, quartermasters, and naval suppliers all belonged to the hidden labor behind public symbols. The resolution gave the concept. Human hands made the cloth. Those hands worked in a wartime economy where fabric, thread, dyes, and skilled time were never abstract. The national symbol was also a material object made under pressure. The design did not immediately become the single standardized flag familiar today. Early flags differed in star arrangements and proportions. Some stars appeared in rows, others in circles or other patterns. As new states joined the Union in later decades, the flag changed again. That evolution is part of the point. The June 14th resolution established the core language of stripes, stars, and union, while later law and custom refined how a growing republic would count itself. The anniversary later became Flag Day, a civic commemoration rather than a battlefield anniversary. That shift tells us something about how nations remember. The original moment was wartime administration, a congressional decision made amid uncertainty. The later memory turned it into a ritual of identity, classrooms, parades, public buildings, and ceremonies. Both versions matter. The flag was born in the machinery of revolution and later carried into the rituals of citizenship. There is a danger in treating any flag story as simple. Symbols can unite, but they can also be argued over. Americans have used the flag to express loyalty, protest, grief, victory, exclusion, inclusion, and demands for the country to live up to its promises. That tension was present from the beginning. A banner representing a new constellation did not settle who fully belonged, how power would be shared, or how liberty would be defined. It gave people a visible object through which those arguments could continue. The next checkpoint after June 14th was not a single unveiling ceremony. It was use, in camps, ports, public offices, and foreign encounters as the war continued. The resolution had to become practice. It had to be recognized by soldiers, sailors, allies, enemies, and citizens. The flag became real not because one sentence passed Congress, but because people carried that sentence into the dangerous, ordinary work of independence. Seen that way, the flag resolution is not only a story about design. It is a story about political imagination under pressure. Congress named a country that was still fighting to survive. It chose stripes for the states and stars for a union not yet fully secured. It left room for variation because the republic itself was still being made. On June 14, 1777, the United States did not receive a finished icon. It received a visual argument. 13 separate lights could be seen together as one new constellation.